All right, I believe we are ready.
All right, thank you, Joel. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the December 1st, 2020 City of Branson Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Thank you for everyone's attendance, and we'll see who we've got here for commissioners at first. So Joel, if you would take roll, and we'll see what kind of numbers we have.
Yes, Commissioner Howden?
Here.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Here.
Commissioner Nichols?
Here.
Commissioner O'Day? Commissioner Pinkley? Did we lose Commissioner Pinkley?
Maybe he's muted.
I think he may have fallen off. We may have lost him.
Okay, well, maybe I'll pop on here in a minute.
Commissioner Richards?
Here.
Commissioner Romine?
Here.
Alderman C?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Davis? I think just joined us. May still be muted. Vice Chairperson Davis, are you there?
Rick, are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I'm
Are
here.
you present?
I'm present. Present and
All
now
right,
accounted for.
Perfect. And then Chairperson Harris.
Present.
All right. It seems we have, let's see,
Seven.
eight commissioners present. We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Joel. That takes us to public comments, which is the time that we usually ask if anyone wishes to make a comment not related to the agenda items. Difficult to do that, of course, as we were talking about technology here sometimes to do. Remember, if anybody's listening in and has a question about any of the things coming on here or any other questions, you can always email Joel at bransonmo.gov, or there's bransonmo.gov/public comments. And we always welcome those, of course. That takes us to the regular agenda items, and we did have a short meeting last time, if you recall, from November 3rd. So there was a set of minutes to look at. Hopefully everybody had a chance to peruse that over just a little bit. Anybody have any questions or comments or see any mistakes or errors or additions or deletions? If not, then the chair would entertain a motion for approving the minutes from November 3rd of 2020.
So moved.
Thank you. And that was Commissioner
Howden.
Howden, okay. And
Second.
second. Commissioner Davis. Okay, all those in favor will need to call roll. Joel, would you call roll for approving the minutes, please?
Commissioner Howden?
Here. Excuse me.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Commissioner Romine?
Yes.
Alderman C?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Davis?
Yes.
Chairperson Harris?
Yes,
The minutes have been approved.
thank you, Joel. Sometimes we have old business, but we did not have any on the schedule for this week. And so that'll take us down to our public hearing agenda items, of which we have two. First one dealing with repealing a planned development item here for Branson View Cabins, and perhaps switching to mixed use for the property. So Joel, you want to help us go over that just a bit?
Yes, the item is a request to repeal Plan Development PD-11-2, known as Branson View Cabins, and approve a zoning change to mixed use for the property located at 1901 Shepherd of the Hills Expressway, Branson, Missouri. The applicant is with us this evening, Mr. Richard Patterson of Equity Trust Company. The current zoning, as mentioned in the title, is planned development. And again, the applicant's request is to rezone the property to mixed use. You can see here on the bottom of the screen, we have a view from Shepherd Hills Expressway looking to the south. The property is along Shepherd of the Hills Expressway, and as you can see, vacant and vegetated at this time. Another view with the vicinity map showing the property outlined in red. You will notice that it's kind of on the edge of city limits in this area. The kind of whitewashed or grayed out area to the north, west, and south are all areas outside the city limits. It is contiguous to the city limits along its eastern boundary. The next vicinity map showing the current zoning, the blue color being planned development, adjacent to properties that are in the mixed use. Next slide showing the requested zoning change to be complementary and compatible to those mixed use properties to the east. And then we've also included the existing land use vicinity map to again show the property is vacant, as well as a lot of the surrounding properties in the area. We also have the orthometric views if we need them during the discussion at any point. So again, the Branson Views Cabin PD, it was approved back in 2011. Actually one of the last PDs that we've approved as a community. The current uses are very minimally listed in this plan development. A lot of the older plan developments have very extensive list of uses, whereas this one has a very small list. It's a 14-acre parcel, and the only use that's allowed is for nightly rental cabins. The plan that was submitted and approved with the plan development showed 38 of those nightly rental cabins kind of on 2 different streets throughout the development. They also included a clubhouse as an amenity for those nightly rental cabins. Again, very specific list of uses in the plan development. However, the applicant is very interested in possibly attracting a future buyer or selling the property. So they're ultimately looking for as much flexibility and development options as possible for someone to purchase the property. So to be able to do that would mean dropping the plan development and reverting to our zoning that would be mixed use for this area. Because this property was outside the community's city limits, at the time of doing the community plan 2030, it was not included in the preferred land use plan shown here on the right that we've kind of highlighted with the red circle. However, it does show in the area community commercial properties, employment properties, and low density residential. And if you put those all together in one, that is the true definition of mixed use, having equal parts residential and commercial. So again, mixed use very much makes sense and is reflective of the zoning of the properties surrounding the property. As a result, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Any of the commissioners have a question for Joel at this time?
I have a quick one.
Yes.
I think I can answer my own question, but wouldn't, with the plan development, would have been more desirable if it was a broader scope?
Yeah, again, the older plan developments, that's very much how they were used by developers, was to make them as flexible as possible. However, that's kind of the exact opposite of what a plan development really should be. This example is actually more how they should be, where the community knows exactly what they're getting from the developer, as opposed to it being able to change at the drop of a hat. So this one was done correctly. It's just the market, I think, has changed for the developer. The initial intent is no longer there, and so now they're ready to, kind of drop it and give somebody the opportunity to have a blank slate, if you will.
Right. So it is as presented. It can't be amended, or, you just got to go with those 2 items on the plan development, the cabin.
The applicant definitely had the opportunity to either amend the plan development or to drop it and zone the property to match the surrounding area. I think, again, to offer as much flexibility as possible, and the applicant can definitely speak to this, but I don't think there are any current plans for the property, so there was really nothing to amend the plan development to do at this time.
Right. Yeah. If it's going to be sold, unless you did all the broad strokes like some of them have, trying to cover every base, it's probably best to try to change it then.
Yeah, staff's preference is definitely to limit, to undo a lot of the plan developments that are in place and get things to the zoning we have. From an enforcement standpoint, it's much easier for staff. From a development standpoint, it's much easier for the staff. And it just makes a lot of sense now that we've updated and modernized our zoning code.
Great. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Joel, I've got a question, Commissioner Nichols.
Yes, sir.
The other property adjacent to this particular parcel, are you able to spin us back to the aerial or one of the zoning maps? That's fine. Any of those is fine. This PD is limited to the piece of property we're dealing with, the PD that's going away. Does it cover other adjacent property that will be affected by the dissolution of the PD?
No, it is solely the property outlined in red that you see on the screen.
Okay, and did you say that the applicant was online with us?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Patterson is with us tonight.
Is this appropriate time for me to ask him a question?
That's fine. Mr. Patterson, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, got some commissioners here, and one of them, Commissioner Nichols, wishes to ask a question about the project. Go ahead.
Certainly.
Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Patterson. Thank you for joining us tonight and being available. Do you have a current offer on the property? Was that your motivation for changing, or simply that you want to list?
The change is because I've already listed it. The current zoning is pretty restrictive. I had a specific, I was not going to do it myself. I was selling it to a person specifically for what it was originally the PD represents. And that has gone away. Hard to believe it was 11 or 9 years ago. But I think everybody is in agreement. Ross Williams, who did a lot of the planning, or did all the planning on it when I had it zoned, he highly recommends the flexibility that this zoning would give. It is a desirable piece of property, but with quite a bit of vacant property available since kind of downturn a few years ago, it hasn't sold well, but I have had interest in it for a couple of times here recently. So that's a good sign.
So you've had a couple of folks looking at it, but you don't have anybody who currently wanting to buy it.
I
That's
do
what
not.
changed.
I do not. No.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
I recently sold a piece of property that was connected to this across the street, and they are now, I think they've got approval for building some rental cabins over the Shoal River down there. And the guy also has a U-Haul business on that piece of property.
That's all in the county, isn't it, Joel?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
other than just for information, that has nothing to do with this.
Thank you. Does anyone else, any of the other commissioners have a question for Mr. Patterson while we have him? No. Anything else, Mr. Patterson, you'd like to let the commissioners know?
No, I think it would be an advantage to Branson. I had to have this annexed into the city whenever I did this zoning. And so even though I think the taxes are pretty high for a vacant piece of property, Branson should certainly have a lot better income off of it than I'm paying. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, is what I'm thinking.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Any other questions by the commissioners for either Joel or for Mr. Patterson?
Yes, Joel.
Yes,
Commissioner,
sir.
Commissioner Howden?
is the property that has the small U-Haul trailers, is that the one directly to the north?
Yeah. It's, yeah, north or, yeah, I guess it's northeast and no, north. Yes, it is. It's across the road. Yes.
Okay.
West.
And then I guess I'm assuming that the one to the east, that's Grace Church. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, that's the one up on the hill there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm just curious if there are going to be any restrictions as we go forward. Sometimes within, schools or churches, there are limitations of what you can put within, a few hundred feet. So I was wondering if that's going to come into contact with that at all.
No, I mean, that would only be if somebody has alcohol sales and that's measured from building to building. And there's quite a bit of space, even from that building to the edge of its own property line. And then there's a leg that comes off of the property to the north as well. So there's quite a bit of room there.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question or comment related to this particular item of changing from a PD to a multi-use? No? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion then for approving resolution number Z020-7, which is recommending the repeal of the plan development known as Branson View Cabins and approval of a zoning change to mixed use for the property at 1901 Shepherd of the Hills Expressway.
So moved.
Nichols, so moved.
Nichols, okay. And it was a second,
Second.
and was that by Alderman C?
That was a tie.
Okay, we'll go Alderman C.
All right.
Thank you, thank you. All right, no other comments or questions from the commissioners. Joel will need to call roll for approval of this particular item.
Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Commissioner C, or
Yes.
Alderman C, Vice Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Chairperson Harris.
Yes,
The request passes.
thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Good luck with this.
Well, if you know anybody would be an addition to their city, let them know it's up there. Thank
Valid.
you.
We
Appreciate
will. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Okay.
All right, Joel, we have a second one for regular public hearing, which is a special use permit. Could you help us with that one?
Yes, the next item is a request for a special use permit to construct an accessory structure within the property located at 223 Elizabeth Drive in Branson, Missouri. The applicant is Stephen F. and Linda Robertson. However, we have their son with us this evening joining us. And then the current zoning of the property is low density residential, or LDR. And the applicant's request, as mentioned in the title, is to construct an accessory structure. Just a reminder again, because the request is for an accessory structure in excess of 800 square feet, that is the reason for the special use permit. We do have an image here. It's a little outdated. It's kind of sitting at the corner of Elizabeth looking to the southeast, showing that the properties are vacant and undeveloped. However, on the next vicinity map, you will see that that's not the case. It's since been developed with single-family homes along Elizabeth Drive. That's these I'm referring to here. There's also some homes back here along Plaza Drive. So the applicant is proposing, which will go into more detail, to occur on these two properties outlined in red. The next vicinity map is showing the current zoning, which is low density residential, surrounded by other properties the same. And then we also have our existing land use map showing those properties that are developed with low density residential or single family homes in the yellow, and those that are vacant properties shown in the gray. And again, the orthometrics, if we need to, the blue line does not perfectly match up with the applicant's properties because these have changed a little bit over the years. Our orthometrics were not updated to be able to show that, but we're still in the general area.
Right.
So again, the request, construct a detached storage shed garage. We have elevations here to the right to show, looking at the side and front. The proposed structure is to be 42 feet by 44 feet, or 1,848 square feet in size. They are proposed to locate it to the rear or south of the existing residential structure that's along Elizabeth. The walls and roof are proposed to be of galvanized steel with an evergreen powder coat finish. They are proposing for this detached storage shed or garage to be accessible from Plaza Drive. That's simply because they don't have the room in between the houses on Elizabeth to be able to properly access the storage shed or garage. And that is because, as the next point mentions, they'd like to primarily use this for storage of the boat that they don't have the ability to store. Additionally, they have some other miscellaneous items that they're currently keeping in the garage of the home on Elizabeth that they would like to move to this proposed structure so they can utilize their garage to park their vehicles in. As part of this request, in order to do so, because this does consist of two properties, The house being on the northern property that is along Elizabeth Drive, and the southern property that's here along Plaza Drive. We do require that accessory structures have to be on the same property as the primary structure, and there's several reasons for that, but primarily it's that it truly is being utilized on the property of their primary structure. So this is a image of the minor subdivision plat that they have submitted to the city for consideration. And what this will essentially do is take the two properties and combine them into one. So you'll see in the conditions that this is very much a part of the recommendation that this be passed and recorded. I'd like to also add at this point that the southern lot that they're looking to put the structure on and combine with the northern lot is currently not owned by the applicant. They will be purchasing the property, but it's contingent upon the results of this special use permit as well as the minor subdivision plat as well. As a result, staff recommends approval based on the following conditions: that the request for a minor subdivision plat submitted on November 2nd of 2020 to combine Table Rock Town Site lots 11 and 14A of Block 7 shall be approved by the city and recorded with Taney County. And number 2, that new structures shall require submittal of individual construction plans and specifications to the city for review and approval prior to any actual construction. And number 3, all construction and activities covered by the special use permit shall conform to all codes and ordinances of the city. And so number 4, I'm going to pause for a second. Number 4 and 5, we've actually added. We had the opportunity to talk with the adjacent property owner at 219 Elizabeth Drive earlier today. They submitted the public comment form through the city's website as they're asked to do on our agendas. And they had some concerns with the request. And so we were able to talk to both owners of the property earlier today, and their primary concern being the size of the proposed structure in relationship to their home and their property and their views. So we have proposed to add numbers 4 and 5 from our conversation with them today. So number 4 reads, as measured from the lots within Block 7 of Table Rock Town Site subdivision, the proposed structure shall have a setback of 50 feet from Lot 10, 10 feet from Lots 13 and 16A, and 40 feet from Plaza Drive, so adequate separation from the adjacent properties can be provided. And number 5, existing trees shall be preserved to the greatest extent possible to screen the proposed structure from the adjacent properties. And number 6, if all conditions of this resolution authorizing the issuance of this special use permit are not acted upon on or before January 1, 2022, this special use permit shall be null and void. And so again, real quickly, I just want to go back to, I'll go back to the aerial. That may be the best. So again, we're proposing a setback from this lot of 50 feet, from Plaza Drive of 40 feet, and then from either side, side properties 15 feet. That doesn't exactly set the location of where the proposed structure can be, but it definitely centralizes it amongst the vegetation that's on the perimeters of the property and does not allow the structure to get out in front of the setback line that's been established by the existing structures along Plaza Drive. So it'll set it back from the road more than a structure would be able to, and help preserve as much vegetation as possible on the property. So again, as a result, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Any of the commissioners have a question for Joel about this?
Yeah, Joel, Commissioner Howard
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Is there precedent for combining lots like this to do such an act?
Yeah, again, it's if somebody has interest in placing an accessory structure on a separate lot from their primary structure, staff all but requires that it be done. There was a property many years ago where I was not here, but as the story is told, so to speak, a property owner approached the city with wanting to build an accessory structure for storage in the lot adjacent to their home. After the storage unit was built, they sold that property, and so now there's a property that exists within a neighborhood that just has a storage unit on it, which is less than ideal for development within a neighborhood. Additionally, we've strengthened the rules and regulations that pertain to accessory structures, particularly in residential areas that do not allow them to utilize them for commercial purposes, especially when something as large as this is being proposed within a neighborhood. We want to be sure it doesn't have a negative effect on the adjacent property owners.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I'm glad we've added number 4 because I think it at least kind of makes it so people can't use this as a workaround in the future. The only thing I guess I'm still concerned about is number 5 because that seems to be kind of broad language, and I don't know how we could enforce, to the greatest extent possible. So maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah, no, it was something we definitely kind of thought a lot about when preparing that condition. While number 4 on the setbacks very much would achieve that, there's nothing preventing somebody with a land disturbance permit for a low-density residential property from clear-cutting the entire property. The applicant has very much expressed their desire as well to keep as much as the vegetation, but when we have the opportunity to get something in writing as part of the approval, that's always preferred over just words, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have a question for Joel?
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, Commissioner Davis.
Joel, 2 questions. One, while we don't have any authority over covenants of neighborhood developments, are you aware of any covenants in place for this particular neighborhood?
Because we don't have enforcement authority over their covenants and restrictions, I am not aware of any covenants and restrictions in their neighborhood that would prevent this. No.
Well, I'd like to ask that question to the applicant's representative here in a minute then. Then my second question has to do with what Commissioner Houghton was looking at, and that is certainly if I were the neighbor, I would want to make sure that my view and or screening activity for this sort of structure, being a metal structure, although it's going to be coated and nice and green, would be considered for the reasons that the neighbors already brought out. So besides in number 5, I would think you would also want to make sure that the landscape requirements for structures are adhered to as much as you can for this particular zoning area, and make sure we have some screening. It's not all about existing trees. While that's important, it's also about understory plants as well. So hopefully the applicant will consider a landscape plan with some greater detail to help satisfy neighbor concerns. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Anyone else? We should make a comment.
Alderman C.
Alderman C.
So I'll ask the simple questions. Other than the adjacent property owners, any overall neighborhood pushback or comments? And then the other question would be, are there similar structures in the general vicinity in that neighborhood?
So other than the adjacent property owners that we talked to today, there was no other property owners that we talked to or shared any concerns with this request based on, our notification requirement of 185 feet from the subject property. Looking at the aerial, you can see that there are some accessory structures throughout the neighborhood in different locations. I mean, within the same block, you can see one in the rear of this property. There's a smaller one in the front, actually, of this property. So, there is some, but, it's not anything it's probably the very average amount that you would see in most neighborhoods. I mean, again, going to the west, there's a couple more here. Going up to the north, there's, one here that's probably used as a carport garage. So
Right.
Pretty typical neighborhood.
Okay. That answers my questions. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes, Commissioner Nichols.
Joel, you said from your conversation with the neighbor, I assume we're talking about the one on the corner there.
We're actually
No?
talking about this one here. This is 219 Elizabeth Drive.
Okay. From your conversation, you said you added 4 and 5. Was that during your conversation, or was that person contacted after you made changes 4 and 5 to see to it that that did satisfy his concerns or their concerns?
No, we always try and prepare for these meetings as much as possible. And, we hate to write conditions or write code on the fly during meetings. So anytime we have the opportunity to write something out beforehand, we always welcome that opportunity. It just so happened, we received the public comment form from the property owner, and then they were, diligent enough to follow that up with a phone call and email. Just simply had the opportunity to talk with them about their questions and concerns over the phone. It was a good conversation, a positive conversation. And again, going back to the point made earlier that I think anytime we can get something in writing, even though I think both conditions reflect what the applicant's goals are that they've shared with us in the past, it's just good to get it in writing because we don't have a site plan showing the exact location of where they wanted to put it. This way, we are creating a very small box for it to be within and addressing the neighbors' concerns of preserving as much vegetation as possible.
Okay. Commissioner Howden, I know you live in the neighborhood, and any of you that are familiar with Truman Drive as it cuts back from 76 down toward Roark Valley Road. And there at the corner, it's a block before Miller and Truman. What is that next street up there, Marshall?
Nyhart.
Well, regardless, on the corner just before you get to Miller and Truman, there's a structure very much like this in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, that was the example I spoke to during the staff report.
Oh, okay. So in that neighborhood, we have home after home. And on this lot, then this commercial structure is added. And since it's got a chain link fence around it and a white gravel lot, and looks very much commercial. So I definitely would be for, as you said, something written, a little stronger language that better defines how this is going to end up looking in terms of, what compared to homes on each side, this could end up looking very commercial. So I wonder if we have the opportunity to table this or to ask for something more specific before something as profound as joining lots is agreed to for this to move forward.
Yeah, again, staff is definitely comfortable that the conditions would get us there. We do have code that requires any surface that they'd be driving on to be paved. So the codes would prevent the gravel situation from occurring with some development today. We do have new codes that were just passed recently about fencing that chain link in the front yards, and we would definitely enforce that to be anything along Plaza Drive. And again, your example there in that neighborhood very much has stuck with us, and we've tried to improve upon that so that situation does not happen again. And again, I think the applicant's intent matches, what the neighbors are wanting to see as well. So I would simply just encourage you all to talk with him and make sure that he has the opportunity to speak.
Well, how will the requirements that you're placing on the change now affect any future owner of the property? If this guy builds a structure and sells it to someone else, are these requirements we're placing here for the change to be made still going to need to be adhered to, or will they then be free to pave the entire thing or whatever they see fit for their driving surfaces?
Well, combining lots and getting approval of the special use permit, it does fix a lot of the issues that occurred with that previous example. For them to build the accessory structure, they need the special use permit. They need a building permit. They will need regular inspections to ensure all the regulations that are required of them are followed. The only thing that could potentially happen in the future from an applicant without the city's blessing is the removal of trees. However, if they don't have a building permit on that property and they remove vegetation, then they can be fined by the city for removal of that vegetation.
Sure, we all adhere to that. Everybody's property adheres to that, right? That's general code for everybody.
That's right. That's right.
But what about the question about future landowners? If somebody buys this property from them, then do they then need to be concerned about the requirements we're placing in terms of keeping vegetation between them and the house next to them and whatever they've worked out with their neighbors? Does that go on property sales?
Yeah, I mean, any planning approvals, regulations, they run with the land, not with the owner. So the requirements, the conditions that you all put forth, and if you approve this request with them, it runs with the land forevermore. So this property owner, future property owners must all adhere to these requirements.
Okay, and I guess to me the greater point is actually that all the people around it were contacted and only one of them reached out to you, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Joel, I've got something
Yes,
else.
Commissioner Howard.
So it seems to me, well, first off, are you saying that if this is combined, it can actually be divided again upon a future sale? Because you said that happened.
If it were sold and the future property owner came to the city and requested it to be subdivided again, we would deny that request because of the accessory structure. If the accessory structure were removed, then yes, we would be able to process that and they could subdivide it and sell off that southern half again. But as long as the accessory structure exists, if approved by you all tonight, it would have to remain one lot.
I see. So, because I'm looking at the bottom, the lower part of it, and it seems like the north side of the lower half is where that berm of trees is that would, be the blockade from the neighborhood that's concerned, from the neighbor that's concerned. And again, just to maybe as thinking through some strategy to give us some teeth of enforcement, instead of using that language to the greatest extent possible, is there any precedent for increasing the fee for tree removal on a specific property?
I would defer to our city attorney, but I would tell you that conditions typically are utilized to protect the neighboring properties from any potential negative effect, and fees are established in the code book. I believe establishing fees or changing fees may be outside your all's purview on establishing conditions with special use permits.
Joel's correct on that. The other limitation too is Hancock. We can't use fees as a punitive measure. So again, it's a good idea, but it's an idea that would be outside the bounds of what we can legally do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Lebec. Joel, I have a kind of a question and a comment. This is a very large structure, 1,800 square feet. And so since the commissioners seem to be somewhat concerned about the size and then also the placing on the lot, it appears to be a commercial type looking structure. If we were building something, if someone was building something like this in a commercial zoning, would they be required to have a landscape plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Even being that it's in a residential area, I mean, we require a landscaping plan to be submitted. They each have their own, differing requirements. We obviously require more landscaping for commercial properties than residential properties. But again, you all have the opportunity with the conditions to impose or add whatever conditions you feel are necessary to make the request palatable or to approve the request.
So Joel, would it be within our ability to ask that a landscape plan that is typically drawn for a commercial zoning area be done for this particular residential area?
I guess I would encourage you more to think along the lines of something quantitatively. So number of trees or width of buffer or something along that lines, as opposed to how the plan is presented or how the plan is drawn.
I guess trying to find something specific is the point of contention here that I see. How can we put the language in there? It'd be difficult for us to say, well, I'd like to have 4 arbor vitae trees on one side and 20 deciduous on another, and those types of things at this particular point in time. I guess my concern would be that it would not be vegetated at the density that it would be if it wasn't a commercial property. And I would think we would owe that at least to the neighbors and future neighbors there too, obviously, that are going to be there. You know, people will be driving down a road looking at wanting to purchase a lot or to buy a house, and all of a sudden they come across this large structure there. If it hasn't been vegetated well, it would seem to me that that would be detrimental to the value of the homes there. So as a person trained in landscape architecture, Joel, what would you suggest that might be good for helping with numbers?
Well, we have something that may help us in this discussion, and that's in code. We have specific requirements for buffering. We have our L1, L2, L3, L4 screening standards already established in code, and obviously, you know, L1 being the least width, the least amount of plant material, and L4 being the most. When you look at how those are applied, a commercial property directly adjacent to a low-density residential property requires an L2 or L3 screening standard. And so then it's up to the applicant or the developer to meet that standard with or plant material. And there's more emphasis placed on maintaining the existing plant material than installing new plant material. So that definitely would push the applicant or encourage them to retain as many existing trees as possible, because they're going to fulfill those screening requirements much easier than ripping all that existing vegetation out and replanting. But the L2 buffer width, just as an example, is 25 feet of width, whereas the L3 is 50. You know, we talked about providing a 50-foot setback from the home, the property that we spoke with, which is here. So that's off of this edge, 10 foot off of either side edge, which is double the typical setback requirement, and then 40 off of Plaza Drive. So again, we have some options there. Based on what staff has recommended, I would say an L3 buffer requirement off of the home at 219 Elizabeth Drive that had the concerns, an L2 buffer off of Plaza Drive, and an L1 edge treatment off of the 2 side yards. That's mixing things up a little bit, but I just think trying to apply an L3 or an L2 on all 4 sides is maybe you know, a little bit more than what's necessary.
Right. Well, that to me, that provides some specificity for what we can do, as opposed to just saying we'd really like this to look good and not be a detriment to the neighborhood as time goes along. So using the L3, the L2, and the L1 on those particular spots, did we insert that language into, I forget, is that number 5 on the conditions? I haven't got that.
Yep, we could, it would simply be rewording condition 5 to the extent to say, you know, very similar how we described it in 4, that the screening or buffering requirement along lot 10 shall be L3 as described by code. It shall be L1 along lots 13 and 16A, and L2 along Plaza Drive.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Howden. Yeah, Commissioner Howden.
Yeah, so Joel, the more I look at this, the more I think that we might actually have some decent language here. Because if we could go back to that map, it seems to me the strategy should be, you know, for us to get it within that little spot where there aren't trees, you know, right in there. And I think that, you know, the 50-foot setback, you know, from the top works. And I think also looking at number 5 and saying that we should keep, the greatest extent possible, then the greatest extent possible will be building where the trees aren't. So I actually think we have some decent language as far as enforcement goes on this.
I felt pretty good about it too, but I'm welcome to offer suggestions for how we can improve upon it as well.
Let me jump in on that. Would it be suffice to say that that structure to the left, in that lower left, is about the same size as that, or is that bigger or smaller?
Oh, that's a great question.
Just for reference, that's a house, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think that's going to be a little bit smaller than the proposed structure. I don't know exactly, but I think it's a little bit smaller than the proposed structure.
If I could add to the fray, that's my question as well. We haven't seen the site plan that shows where on that lot the building would go, but more than that, relative to the lot, how big is this structure? Is it going to be too large to even allow the kind of buffering that we're talking about in terms of L1 and L2 and L3?
Well, I can tell you that southern lot is 75 feet wide by 150 feet deep. So roughly with a 42 by 44 structure, it will be about a third of the lot.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
So building on what Commissioner Howden was saying, that you can see that little patch there up towards the top. And, as we all know, that construction footprint definitely goes outside the, dimensions of the structure. But with the setbacks and stuff, it looks like it can be, slid back there. I don't know about that big clump in the front, but that's a pretty deep lot. 150 and pretty wide. So, but I was just trying to get a reference if that house there was bigger or smaller.
Yeah, good point. It's difficult to know exactly what percent of that lot, but it looks like now we're talking a third of it, 33% of it.
Yeah,
would be taking that up, and of course you've got to have a driveway coming in through there too. So
I'm gonna revise. I tried to do math in my head. I should have known better. So putting the hard numbers of 1,848 square feet divided by 11,250, it's more like 16% of the lot coverage will be the proposed structure. So,
well, and the time you put the driveway and et cetera in there. So,
yeah.
Yes, Alderman C. Any other comments there?
Yeah, other than just, if we can impose the buffers and stuff, and if everybody thinks it's a good idea, the neighbors and stuff, we don't really want to overthink it too much, but I know you got to have some semi-stiff language in there.
Okay,
The
so
only other thing, I would say is that he's going to need to access his accessory structure. So he's going to need to take out some of these trees up at this top berm here, unless there's some kind of little path that can be created without doing that.
okay. I guess so then, am I getting some consensus about the application of the L1, L2, and L3 conditions, or are we sticking with the lesser language then, I guess? Any commissioner have a comment on that?
I would back that amendment.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in?
I would, and Joel, is that a really big jump from originally planned to the L1 zonings or indications?
Standard.
So the distance requirement very much mirrors the suggested condition for setbacks. It's just by providing that language for screening requirements, it would just set a requirement for the amount of landscaping that would have to be either preserved or installed.
Gotcha. Yeah, well then I would follow along with Commissioner Nichols.
Okay, good.
This is Commissioner Lloyd. The property to the left where the house looks like, when I try to blow it up, it's right on the property line. Should we be concerned about them if it's only 10 feet away from them? That would be awful close if they're not backed off it. Joel, it looks like that red line almost touches that house.
Yeah, we always have to, take our vicinity maps, that they aren't perfect. Sometimes the aerials and the lines over the top of them don't exactly match up. What we do know is that house on the corner, to the west of the subject property, couldn't have been built unless it had a 5-foot setback, from its property line. And knowing if we hold fast to the 10-foot setback, there would be at a minimum 15-foot separation between that existing structure and the proposed structure, at a minimum. It may be more than that.
But let's see, Joel, do we have the applicant, Mr. Robertson, available?
He is on. If we get him to unmute, he should be able to join us.
Okay. Mr. Robertson, are you there? Mr. Robertson, have you unmuted? Joel, I'm not getting anything.
Yeah, he's shown there.
Somebody hold up a sign.
Yeah, right.
Like Commissioner Howden.
Got a whiteboard, Greg?
Yeah.
Nice.
I know he was going to be joining by phone because he was having some computer difficulties. As I said, he has joined. He just needs to unmute. Mark, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, because I'd be curious what finished floor to ridge height is. That building looks tall.
Right.
Well, and one of our requirements is that it can't be any taller than the principal structure or principal residence. So that would be a limiting factor.
It looks taller than that, especially with the roll-up door. But I mean, it'd be interesting to
His
know.
peak, right, from the peak of his house, that could extend all the way across the building like a flat top. Of course, the plan doesn't show that.
Does that look like a 12-foot door?
It looks like it if you look at that 3.0 door, that man door to the right of it.
Yeah.
Okay, hello.
Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
Oh, Mr.
Okay.
Robertson.
Perfect.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
Mr. Robertson, this is Chairman Harris. If you could tell us a little bit about the building, for instance, we just talked about the height. What is the height of the building?
Well, I know it has, it's 12-foot beams, okay? And it's gabled. And then there's 2 10-foot garage doors, and it's like, it's for the boat, it's for the watercraft, and I'm going to put like all my tools, everything, my workshop in there, for, home improvement, whatever, and it's just, and anyways, it's going to be top quality. It's all insulated, top of the line, brand new. I mean, you look off to the left, there's like, these cats that have these, steel structures that are, rusted buildings and, like this is not going to be that.
Okay.
This
So
is
Mr. Robertson, Commissioner Richards here. So you're saying that's a 10-foot tall roll-up door that we're looking at?
Yeah, 2 10
So
foot
if you take that,
roll-up
stack it on
doors.
itself, so it's like 25 feet to the ridge would be my estimate from finished floor.
Maybe up to the ridge. You might be right about that, sir.
Let's see, Joel, and what are our requirements? It can't be any higher than the peak of the house that they live in?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's quite that tall, to be honest with you.
Okay. And Mr.
You know,
Roberts,
I think it's, yeah, but, whatever.
Okay.
I'll get the plans, if you need them, I'll get them.
okay. And have you were listening to the discussion about doing some
Oh,
of the
yes, sir. Yes,
landscaping?
sir.
Are you okay? Does that seem all right with you for us to make sure we have some really good landscaping around there?
Oh, God, that's, me and my dad talked about it. and it was like, we want to preserve as much of the trees around it. That's, why, we're going with the green, I mean, it's like we're all about that.
Okay, so you're in agreement kind of with some of the discussion we have for.
Oh, no, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, good. Well, when it comes down to it, we may do just a little modification if one of the commissioners so chooses to put in.
Well, we'll do, exactly, what you tell us to do. Okay.
Right.
We'll do it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any of the commissioners have any other questions or comments to Mr. Robertson?
So Joel, a clarification then, this structure can't be higher than the highest point of his house.
That's correct, and that's where during the building permit process, we'll ensure that any conditions along with the code requirements are met before we issue a building permit.
Gotcha, and that's
and you got to remember, this house is actually pretty high. It's built into a hill, and it comes into the back, and I'm telling you, it's way more than 25 feet high in the back. And, Joel can, come out, take, he can look at it personally, and he'll see.
So you would Joel,
the low density
of grade, the front grade of the house.
So the low density residential zoning district allows a maximum height of 35 feet. And the way that is factored is we take the average height of all four sides. So we combine them together, and that provides us with the height of the structure. And we would do the same measurement for the proposed structure to ensure it's no higher than.
Then take the measurements, and tell us. It's like we want to do, what's right, with the city. That's, we're trying to do this by the book, okay?
Sure. Okay, well, we appreciate that. Any of the other commissioners have a question or comment? Joel, any final comments? If one of the commissioners chooses to make a modification to number 5 using the new language, do you have that? You went over it once with us. Do you have that again? Or you could say it again?
I'm happy to repeat it, to say it again.
Okay, we'll see if one of the commissioners chooses to amend number 5 language in that regard. Anybody else? If not, the chair would entertain a motion for resolution SU 20-9, which is authorizing a special use permit to construct the accessory structure. So we need a motion for approval in a second, and then see if we want to make some modifications.
Point of order, Chairman Harris, do we need to amend this before we make the approval on the resolution?
I think since Joel already put this out, we probably better go ahead and make a motion and get approved and then modify the language.
Davis, I make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. Do we have a second?
Indeed.
See, second. Thank you. Okay, now.
And God bless you all, and thank you.
Well,
we just want a place to park our boat, to put the watercraft, and a workshop. That's all we want,
Okay. Sounds good. Well, we're working on the conditions right now, Mr. Robertson. So.
All right, and we're going to work with you. 100%. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
We're going to do exactly what you tell us to.
Okay, sounds good. One of the commissioners wish to ask Joe perhaps to make a modification to number 5.
Yes, I'd like to ask for that modification language from Joel, please.
Okay.
So on number 5, what staff would suggest is that the proposed structure shall provide screening and separation as follows: that they would provide L3 separation along lot 10, L1 edge treatment along lots 13 and 16A, and L2 along Plaza Drive.
Okay. So that would be Mr. Nichols, Commissioner Nichols, your amendment for number 5 on the conditions.
Yes, I move for that proposed amendment. Thank you for the language, Joel.
Do we need
You're welcome.
we need a second for the amendment, and then we'll vote on the amendment, and then we'll vote on the amended item. Do we have a second amendment?
Commissioner Lloyd will second.
Okay, Commissioner Lloyd will second. Joel, let's call roll for the amendment as Commissioner Nichols just said.
Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Alderman C,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Chairperson Harris.
Yes,
The amendment passes.
thank you, Joel. Now, Commissioners,
God bless you all.
okay, we're
Thank
just,
you.
Mr. Roberts, we're just about finished. Joel, would you call roll for the, we'll be now approving the modified resolution.
Yes, Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Alderman C,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Chairperson Harris.
Yes,
Chairperson Harris, the request passes as amended.
okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Robertson, we've completed that one and approved that with those particular conditions, and I'm sure you'll probably want to talk to Joel or he'll contact you.
And he will. I'll be in contact with them, and God bless you all. I mean, we're tired of playing. The whole rent thing with the boats and all the storage, and it's just anyways. So, but that was really cool of you guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're glad to be of help and look forward to you having a successful project. So, Joel,
Right.
okay, Joel, I think that takes care of our public hearing agenda items for this evening. Do you have any particular staff reports you have for us?
No, I don't. Again, just appreciate everybody's participation and patience with us while we're doing this. You're getting so good at doing the Zoom meetings, we're going to throw another curveball at you. Someday when we come back and do this in person, our city clerk is rolling out a new system called PrimeGov. And so it will completely automate our meeting process, our voting process, make for a much more efficient process overall, which we're all looking forward to. But we won't have to wrestle with that doing virtual meetings, but something to look forward to when we get back together.
Sounds good. Thank you, Joel. Look forward to it.
Hey, Joel, thank you so much for all your help, okay?
Thank you, Mark. Take care.
Oh, God bless you, man. Okay. Bye-bye.
Any of the commissioners wish to make a comment or have a question in general at this time?
This is Commissioner Lloyd.
Yes.
And Joel, I know of this in Springdale and Bentonville area. When someone builds a commercial looking structure in a residential area, they make them put a facade that looks residential on it. Have we ever thought about something like that?
It's been talked about, design standards, largely is what that would be categorized as. In the city of Branson, that's one thing we've really never taken on. Something to consider. I think, the vegetation, providing screening and buffering of this proposed structure is very helpful. I think it was great to get included in the conditions and the approval. But, again, that is something that you all always have the ability to consider when you're reviewing these requests. And I think that was one of the main reasons for having these larger accessory structures come through the special use permit process. So you all have the opportunity to look at them individually and determine what conditions may be necessary so they don't ruin the fabric of the neighborhood.
Yeah. Commissioner Lloyd, that's a great point. I know I've seen them where they do either stone or brick, maybe halfway up, and they involve some timber or cedar, represents sort of a semi-front porch or overhang. So yeah, that may be something to pursue. This one's probably going to be further back, but if it was, the normal offsets and stuff, I could see that being a real advantage, trying to work that into the code and the requirement. Because that one that Commissioner Nichols pointed out, yeah, like you said, that's a learning experience.
I think site context has definitely a lot to do with it as well. We have a lot of great neighborhoods throughout the city, but each one of them is unique in their own kind of nature. When you look at, Branson North compared to, maybe this Table Rock Town Site neighborhood. I think if we had more neighbors that were interested and had some concerns about the aesthetics, it's definitely something to take on. With this one, what we heard loud and clear was, save the vegetation as much as possible. And I think you all have achieved that with the screening and buffering requirement.
Right. And usually depends on how long ago was it in the county and how recent it has been to the city. So.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Good.
Yeah,
Commissioner Howden.
Sure. Joel, at the last Alderman meeting, there was a really impassioned speech by a citizen pretending to have property off of Parnell Drive. Was there ever any follow-up on that?
So I provided a memo to the board members earlier today, along with administration, kind of documenting staff's past experiences with that property and kind of the rationale of why the decision was made to issue a building permit.
Okay, I appreciate that. I always like to see that we follow up on that, but as long as there's good kind of reason behind it and precedent, then I'm comfortable with that. So.
Yeah, and I received that, Joel, but maybe you want to go over some of the high points.
So essentially this is a property that is in the Lakeview Terrace neighborhood area, which is kind of the Parnell Drive, Iserman area, to kind of get you all in that area of the city. And there, when that Lakeview Terrace was subdivided, platted back in the 50s, I believe it was very much a dense neighborhood plat. To the tune of about 6 units per acre. And this particular area of concern that was brought up during the board meeting, there was a house being, so to speak, taking advantage of an infill opportunity. And as the neighborhood has developed over the years, people have bought 2 lots, 3 lots, and built their home on those lots to have more land to build a bigger house. Unfortunately, when a lot of that was done early on in the subdivision in the 50s, there's no record of those property owners combining multiple lots into one. So from a planning standpoint, many structures were built over property lines, or they were illegally built because they didn't meet setback requirements. And this particular area, the lots were oriented north and south to face Malone Drive. However, when the first homes were built, there was more hierarchy with Iserman Drive, and so those homes were built to face that direction instead. And the result was it left a remnant lot, again, because they didn't properly combine the lots, and so it left a remnant lot. And it just kind of fell by the wayside. Nobody was aware of it because of county mapping practices and so on and so forth, until it was brought to staff's attention by a surveyor that this remnant lot existed. So the property owner, being made aware that there was a remnant lot, wanted the opportunity to build a home on it, sell it, make some money. Because that lot exists, it's a lawful lot, it was plotted, he was able to present a site plan that met all of the requirements for the low density residential district, meaning setback. And so, staff had no choice but to approve that building permit and issue that building permit. So it met all the requirements. It was just kind of one of those things that, bad planning practices, whatever you want to call them, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that got us to this point. But, looking at the bigger picture, we are a community that supports infill development. We're a community that supports affordable housing. And this is just one opportunity that somebody took advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of teachable moments in that neighborhood like that. What appears to be a 40-foot fence built out of pallets in that one lady's yard there on Parnell.
Yeah, the
So-
reason we now have fencing requirements.
Exactly. Lesson learned. So, all right. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Good. Any other comments or questions by the commissioners? Hearing none, chair would entertain a motion for adjournment this evening.
So moved.
So moved, likely. Second,
Second.
Lloyd. Joel, would you call roll one last time for adjournment?
Yes, Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd, Commissioner Lloyd.
He muted.
Muted.
Yes.
Wait, yes, yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Alderman C,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Chairperson Harris.
Yes,
We are done. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Clark.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a
Happy
good
holidays.
holiday.
Yes. Happy holidays, everyone.
Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Be safe.
Be safe.